Upon seeing E.G.'s martial spirit, Cumberland's eyes widened in fear and his body began to tremble. He could not believe that E.G. was so powerful. Compared to E.G.'s martial spirit, Cumberland seemed like a simple ant. While the spirit was staring at Cumberland with a curious gaze, E.G. called the insect and asked what he was going to do now. Cumberland began to observe the spirit in silence, not knowing what to do. Just before he could plan his next move, the spirit caught his body using its hand. Upon noticing this, Cumberland's eyes widened in surprise and confusion, knowing that now he was in danger. While E.G.'s body was surrounded by martial energy, he approached Cumberland, and while his eyes were shining with arrogance, with a smile he asked if someone like Cumberland really dared to challenge him. He was like a mantis trying to stop a moving carriage. The attention of the poor martial Saint Cumberland was fixed on E.G., and he could not help but tremble and sweat in fear. E.G.'s eyes widened with evil, and with a demonic smile he decided to repeat it once more. In 3 days he wanted all level 8 or higher warriors on the planet to come and worship him. Furthermore, he also wanted all the valuable resources of the planet. Cumberland's face filled with sweat, making him panic. He didn't know what to do now since he was no match for a monster like him. With a furious gaze, the martial saints couldn't help but clench their fists and teeth tightly. They couldn't believe that Cumberland had been captured. Just then, E.G.'s martial spirit began to squeeze Cumberland forcefully. Upon feeling this, his eyes began to shine with desperation, knowing that he had no way of doing anything about it. Not long after, Cumberland opened his mouth and began to scream in agony. E.G. showed no mercy, and his martial spirit squeezed Cumberland's body, making it explode into pieces. E.G.'s eyes began to shine with joy, and with a smile he made it clear that if they did not fulfill his wishes within 3 days, the same fate would await the planet and its inhabitants. Upon seeing this, the eyes of the black-haired martial saint filled with fear, and he could not help but sweat, as he could not believe that Cumberland had been annihilated in an instant. The man with a beard extended his hands and with a nervous gaze began to scream like a madman. Knowing that this was the end, the Lion Country was lost. At the same time in the dream space, the battle was fierce, with Yefeng staring at each other, while their bodies were releasing powerful martial energy. Lusheng's attention was fixed on them. Our boy began to observe them silently. Yang Yizhou, who was standing next to him, began to touch his chin with a curious expression, and with a smile mentioned that the confrontation between those 2 level 15 powerhouses was about to conclude. Upon hearing Yang Yizhou's voice, Lusheng came out of his thoughts and his attention focused on the old man. While his eyes were shining with seriousness, he began to observe Wang Qiu and Duan Yefeng and realized that their divine demands had been annihilated. He did not know if this was the end of the battle. Not long after, both descended gracefully in front of Lusheng. With a serene gaze, Wang Qiu mentioned that they had already shown enough of their power, and decided that now it was Lusheng's turn. With a cheerful expression, Duan Yefeng adjusted his hat with his finger and nodded. Our boy's eyes filled with confusion and surprise, and upon thinking calmly, he realized that they had done all this for him. Duan Yefeng and Wang Qiu remained silent. While his eyes were shining with seriousness, Lusheng extended his hands and concentrated, making 2 stars appear, one made of fire and another green, one made of scales. A phoenix appeared in the fire star and a dragon appeared in the green star. Lusheng began to observe them attentively, and his eyes started to shine with confusion. He didn't know why there always had to be a winner and a loser, nor why it couldn't be attempted for both to coexist. With a sincere gaze, Wang Qiu made it clear that Lusheng's idea was not going to work, since his path and Duan Yefeng's were both supreme paths, dominant and violent. They could not coexist under the same heaven. With a serious expression, Duan Yefeng nodded his head. Lusheng began to gaze toward the ground, and thought that they were right. Then he raised his head, and while his eyes were shining with determination, he mentioned that they could try to create a 3rd star. Our boy gathered the stars and concentrated, causing blue energy to emerge from it. With a serious gaze, he asked what would happen if he found a smooth path that could balance these 2 supreme and dominant paths. With a cheerful expression, Lusheng focused, and began to summon a drop of water, since he thought that water could be the most suitable. Using his power, He fused the drop of water with the star and a glacier began to form within it. Lu Sheng made his move and, in an instant, a blue star appeared, a world completely covered by oceans and glaciers. It didn't take long before the star suddenly fractured, and from it slowly emerged a small turtle. The star broke like a shell and an adorable turtle appeared. Lu Sheng extended his hand and the turtle began to float on it. Our boy's eyes started to shine with joy. He called the little turtle Shuwen-Wu and mentioned that it was the first turtle born in this stellar region. Once the turtle turned around, it saw Wang Yi's powerful phoenix and Duan Yefeng's dragon. The Jinwu and the dragon approached, looking curiously at Shuwen-Wu. It was the first time these three creatures met. Wang Yi's attention was fixed on them. With a serious gaze he made it clear that this is nothing more than a distraction. Water and fire were incompatible. Soon they would begin a new round of confrontations. Lu Sheng, who was controlling the three creatures, began to gaze towards Yang Yizhou with a curious expression. Yang Yizhou closed his eyes and began to show a smile. The phoenix approached the turtle and began to roar with rage, leaving it somewhat confused. With a serene gaze, Lu Sheng asked Wang Yi not to rush since new conflicts would always attract new forces to resolve them. The fourth star was going to join the battlefield. Wang Yi began to observe carefully and his eyes widened in surprise. He could not believe that there was a fourth star. The eyes of Duan Yefeng, who had his arms crossed, were filled with curiosity. While Lu Sheng's eyes were shining with joy, he extended his hand to one side and a green star began to manifest in his hand. The surface of the small star began to crack. When it touches the ground it becomes wood. In the sky it is a phoenix. This is the star of wind and forest. Once the star broke into pieces, a powerful white tiger appeared, which began to roar. The creatures began to observe each other with curiosity. With the arrival of the white tiger, the tension between the Jinwu and the Sunwu was immediately relieved. The Jinwu enjoyed being close to the white tiger, and it naturally wanted to play with the Sunwu, creating a rather harmonious atmosphere. While they were playing, the crystal dragon was watching from afar and seemed to feel a little lonely. Lu Sheng began to observe the little dragon carefully, and with a cheerful expression, decided not to forget about it, and revealed that it was time to look for a new companion for it. Lu Sheng concentrated his energy on his finger and his energy began to form a new orange-colored star. From this star was born a small and adorable earth kiln, just as Lu Sheng had anticipated. The crystal dragon seemed to feel a natural affinity for the earth kiln, approaching it frequently and willingly. The small earth kiln, cheerful and enthusiastic, followed the Jinwu everywhere. Although the Jinwu did not find this very amusing and seemed to be somewhat furious, Lu Sheng extended his hand and using his power enclosed all the creatures within a barrier of energy. With a confident gaze he made it clear that this was how a perfect cycle was born. The attention of Wang He and Duan Yefeng focused on the creatures and their eyes widened in surprise and confusion. With a kind smile, our boy explained that this star region had completely entered into a state of harmony. 5 forces balanced and propelled each other, almost eliminating conflicts. With a serious expression, Duan Yefeng made it clear that this did not matter since human forces had limits and how could Lu Sheng alone cultivate the 5 level 15 paths. Wang He began to gaze towards Lu Sheng, and with a serene expression admitted that Duan Yefeng was right. Reaching the maximum level in a single path was already difficult, and trying with 5 was excessive greed. Wanting to grasp too much was a vain illusion. Duan Yefeng began to show a smile and nodded his head. With a lost expression, Lu Sheng began to gaze towards the ground in silence. Then he concentrated and a new star began to manifest in the middle of his hands. With his eyes closed, Lu Sheng brought his hands together, crushing the new star. Upon seeing this, Wang He's eyes filled with fear and surprise. He did not know how Lu Sheng had been able to destroy with his own hands everything that had cost him so much effort to create. Duan Yefeng's jaw dropped in surprise. According to him, this was like a painter throwing his masterpiece into the fire to watch it burn. While energy was emerging from Lu Sheng's hands, our boy began to gaze toward the ground. Yang Yizhou, who was standing behind, remained silent. His eyes widened with joy and he couldn't help but sweat. He was in shock at seeing what Lu Sheng was trying to do. With eyes shining with joy, Lu Sheng turned to the old man and with a smile asked if this counted as a correct answer. Yang Yizuo began to touch his chin and with a smile, said that Lu Sheng was going in the right direction. What remained now was to keep moving forward. Wang He took a step forward, and with a confused gaze questioned what Lu Sheng had done just a moment ago. He thought he had given up. Yang Yizuo closed his eyes and with a smile made it clear that there was no need to ask. That answer made no sense for them to know. It would only create frustration. Upon hearing this, Duan Yifeng's mind filled with confusion. He began to look at Lu Sheng and with a curious expression began to ponder. Seeing this, Lu Sheng started looking down at the ground in silence, while Yang Yizuo began showing a proud smile. While Lu Sheng's eyes were shining with joy, he began to gaze at his hand and could not help but smile. This game for him had been of immense value. From this moment on, his destiny and his martial path had completely changed. Lu Sheng clenched his fist and a confident smile spread across his face. The last answer that Yang Yizuo had confirmed was a goal that neither Wang He nor Duan Yifeng had managed to reach. It was the path towards level 16. This is the end of the video. If you guys want to see the next part, Lu Sheng closed his eyes, placed his hand over his chest and bowed to Yang Yizuo as a form of respect, and with a curious expression asked what was his martial path. He had seen the domain of Wang Qiandu and Yifeng but not that of Yang Yizuo. Yang Yizuo began to gaze at the ground in silence, and then a smile spread across his face. Upon noticing this, Lu Sheng's attention fixed on him. Not long after, Yang Yizuo decided to show Lu Sheng his martial path, and while his body was surrounded by green martial energy, he extended his hand. With a joyful expression, Yang Yizuo began to control the wind. Lu Sheng, who was standing in front, remained silently observing attentively. Not long after, Yang Yizuo's energy transformed into a Go board. Lu Sheng's attention was fixed on it and his eyes widened in surprise and confusion. Then Yang Yizuo picked up one of the Go pieces, and while his eyes were shining with seriousness, with a smile he made his move and placed the piece on the board, revealing that everything Lu Sheng had seen was his domain. Lu Sheng's eyes widened in fear and surprise. He was in shock as he could not believe that this vast world, which was a grand creation, was Yang Yizuo's domain. With a sincere gaze, Yang Yizuo turned to the side and revealed that after this game of Go he was going to reveal some secrets. Lu Sheng remained silent, not knowing what to say. Yang Yizuo turned his back on our boy and began walking alongside Wang Qiandu and Ye Feng and asked Lu Sheng to follow them. Lu Sheng's attention was fixed on them, making him feel confused since he didn't know what was happening. He decided to listen to the master and they all started walking under the starry sky in silence. Several seconds later, with eyes shining with seriousness, they stopped walking. Yang Yizuo closed his eyes, concentrated and extended his hand to one side, causing blue martial energy to begin to emerge from his body. In the blink of an eye, Yang Yizuo created 5 lava planets in the sky. Lu Sheng, who was standing behind, remained silent. He raised his head and while his eyes were shining with sincerity, he revealed that those planets had already perished in the calamity and Lu Sheng's world was facing the same destruction. With a curious gaze, Lu Sheng asked if the beasts from another world were really that terrifying, and if someone powerful like a master couldn't stop them. All the planets were floating in the sky, with a serious gaze. Yang Yizuo, who had his arms behind his back, turned toward Lu Sheng and our boy soon realized that the invasion of the beasts was not as simple as he thought, and the world they came from was not just any world. Yang Yizuo closed his eyes, concentrated and began to move his hand, causing a strange energy to appear in the sky. Yang Yizuo began to observe it and revealed that it was the dark side of countless material universes, the source of all evil, the concentration of all negative energy. The beasts Lu Sheng had seen were only the most superficial manifestation of that power. Lu Sheng's eyes began to shine with rage and fear, realizing that it was the negative energy of countless material universes, and now a single universe had to bear it, being an unstoppable calamity. Yang Yizuo's eyes began to shine with seriousness. He turned his back on Lu Sheng and mentioned that the most crucial thing was that, once this force appeared in Lu Sheng's universe, it would mean that the true end of his universe was near. Lu Sheng began to ponder in silence, and then, with a confused gaze, asked why that was going to happen. Since then, an apple appeared in Yang Yizuo's hand. With a serene expression, he made clear that the reason was simple. Lu Sheng's attention was fixed on the apple and his eyes widened with curiosity. Using his fingers, Yang Yizhuo cut the apple in half and showed it to Lu Sheng. The reality was that the apple was contaminated. Lu Sheng began to observe carefully and his eyes widened in surprise upon realizing that once this force corrupted, it was like the beginning of putrefaction. No matter what was done, at most it could only be delayed. Yang Yizhuo tightly grabbed the apple and with a sincere gaze nodded his head. Lu Sheng clenched his fists and with a confused gaze began to wonder what meaning his actions had now, since not even the level 15 and 16 masters could stop the calamity. Yang Yizhuo revealed that everything had already begun and the fate was sealed. Upon hearing this, Lu Sheng could not help but wonder what he could do. Yang Yizhuo and the others turned their backs on Lu Sheng. Our boy clenched his fists and began to gaze at the ground. At that moment Lu Sheng was dejected. Although he never underestimated himself, he was neither blind nor arrogant. The three people in front of him were infinitely more powerful. It could be said that in the future his achievements would not be inferior to theirs, but if even they could not manage to do it, how could Lu Sheng do better alone? His eyes began to shine with honesty. He was an ordinary person. And when he learned that his world would be destroyed in 10,000 years, he thought that he could still keep fighting a little longer. But the destruction of the universe was something too big, so there was nothing he could do. With eyes shining with joy, Wang Qiu and Duan Yefeng turned around while Yang Yizhuo continued turning his back on our boy. Lu Sheng began to look at his master and mentioned that recently he had witnessed the level 15 demand even 16. According to him it was majestic and resplendent, but now they were telling him that all that effort in the end led only to a dead end. Everything was in vain. With a curious expression, Yang Yizhuo turned around and asked if Lu Sheng was afraid. With eyes shining with confusion, Lu Sheng lowered his head and admitted to being a little scared. Just then, the apple that Yang Yizhuo was holding in his hand began to burn, and not long after, the flames consumed it. Yang Yizhuo's eyes began to shine with confidence, and with a smile he couldn't believe that Lu Sheng, who once thought about surviving among death and looked like the spark capable of holding up the sky with one hand, was now afraid. Just then, Lu Sheng's eyes widened in surprise. Plunging his fist, Lu Sheng began to imagine the system windows and his mind filled with confusion. He didn't know if all of this had been a plan by Yang Yizhuo. Realizing that all of this had been a test, in a certain sense, the system did not lie. That was the true future of the universe. With a smile, Yang Yizhuo turned around, extended his hand toward Lu Sheng and mentioned that, before Lu Sheng was just an ordinary high school student who had not started the martial path and still had the determination to save the world. Now he was millions of times stronger than back then and faced with the same supreme calamity. Now he wanted to retreat. With a joyful gaze, Wang Qi and Duan Yefeng began to show a smile. Yang Yizhuo closed his eyes and a smile spread across his face. He asked Lu Sheng not to forget that he had their support. Lu Sheng's eyes widened in surprise and he began to ponder in silence. With a sincere expression, he admitted that before he was useless but dared to do anything, and now being millions of times stronger, he had become a coward. With eyes shining with rage, Lu Sheng clenched his fist, realizing that the stronger a warrior was, the smaller their determination. With a curious gaze, Yang Yizhuo asked if Lu Sheng had understood and if he had regained his confidence. With a smile, Lu Sheng began to touch his head, looked away, and with a nervous expression said that he had not regained confidence. But he knew that with the help of his masters, at least he would be able to advance a few steps more than them. With eyes shining with determination, he decided to check if this catastrophe was truly unstoppable. Upon hearing this, the eyes of Yang Yizhuo and the others widened in surprise and their jaws dropped in shock. They could not help but smile and feel joyful. With a proud smile, Yang Yizhuo mentioned that he had hundreds of millions of disciples. Upon hearing this, Wang Qiu's and Duan Yefeng's attention focused on him. Yang Yizhuo touched Lu Sheng's chest and made it clear that among the millions of disciples he had, the one he was most proud of was Lu Sheng. Upon hearing this, Lu Sheng's eyes filled with surprise. He couldn't help but smile and feel happy to see that he had been recognized by his master. Wang Qiu crossed his arms and passed by Lu Sheng, while on the other side, with a smile, Duan Yefeng placed his hand on his shoulder. They stood around Lu Sheng, and now that our boy was willing to take a few steps forward, they decided to help him with all their strength. With a confused gaze, Lu Sheng began to turn his head from side to side. Wang Qiu focused, and a powerful martial energy began to emerge from his body. His domain, the domain of the stars, was now complete, and he was going to give it to Lu Sheng. Wang Qi used his power, and his energy shot out towards Lu Sheng. Little by little it began to enter Lu Sheng's body, causing him terrible pain. Lu Sheng's eyes widened in confusion and fear. He did not know if he was going to die. The energy fused with Lu Sheng's body. With a surprised gaze, he realized that this was infinite fire. This was completely different from what he had learned before. At this moment, Wang Qiu had just given him his level 15 martial arts knowledge without reservations. Duan Yefeng also focused, and a crystal ball appeared in his hands. His younger fellow disciple had transmitted everything he knew to Lu Sheng. So as the more experienced disciple, he could not fall behind. He decided to give Lu Sheng his divine crystal domain. The energy of Duan Yefeng also began to enter Lu Sheng's body. Our boy opened his mouth and began to scream in pain. Their energies began to emerge from Lu Sheng's body. His attention was fixed on his hands. This was the ultimate edge, the light of divinity. He had obtained 2 level 15 domains. With a smile, Yang Yizhou began to touch his chin and mentioned that it was still a little early for Lu Sheng to receive his domain. He reached out his hand to Lu Sheng and touched his forehead, causing his eyes to widen in surprise. Yang Yizhou's energy entered Lu Sheng's body, and he appeared in space. Yang Yizhou had given him a universe. Lu Sheng was paralyzed with shock as he did not know what was happening. With eyes shining with joy, Yang Yizhou began to show a smile. He hoped that Lu Sheng could obtain what he desired. This is the end of the video. If you guys want to see the next part,